I'm Jerry Vaisey, and the show is I Can't Write Right, right? And as always, I'm going to ask you, have you started your book yet? Last month was, what's it called? NaNoWriMo?
Oh, National Novel Writing Month.
National
Yes.
Writing Month. And so you should have started one, and if you just let me know that you have. Now this is Yaasha Moriah. She's written several books, as you can see. Now, what got you into writing?
Honestly, I never remember a time when I wasn't writing. I like to say that I was writing before I could hold a pencil, because I would dictate my stories to my mother, and then she would write them down, and then I'd draw these ridiculous little pictures to go with it, and those would be my stories. But once, of course, I learned how to write myself, then I was just writing. I'm not sure, it was never a decision. It wasn't like, I think I'm going to be a writer. It was just, it happened.
Maybe you were a writer in a former life and don't remember it, right? I notice, pardon me saying so, that you are an excellent typist as well. I see you on the Highgate shows when I tape the meetings.
Yeah,
and you're always
the
there.
Swanton Select Board and DRB and stuff, yes.
Right, and you never seem to be behind whatever they're saying, so.
Don't let that fool you, but I do work very hard at that, and yes, I type quickly.
So, and I notice you have 4 books here. They're all, about 100 pages, give or take, or so?
Yeah, depending on the book. They're all about, they're under 20,000 words, so yeah. Yeah, novelettes, not full-length novels yet, but the novels are coming, trust me.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, and you were always been a writer, even from a previous life, maybe, for all you know, right?
For all I know, sure.
Now, what would you say to people who are thinking about writing that haven't been a writer in a previous life?
Oh boy. Number one would be read a lot. You kind of, once you're marinating in words and you're spending a lot of time in words and you see what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and like reading a broad range of things. Usually people try to stick in one genre and read just what they like to read. I think that there's a lot to be found in reading things maybe that you don't like to read, but that might inform your viewpoint more. So read a lot. I read tons as a kid. And I'm trying to keep up with reading now. As an adult, it's a little harder.
Yeah, you seem like a busy person.
Oh yeah, I'm always in the middle of something.
Now you are in a writer's group, I understand.
Yep, I actually started the group. What I was looking for, I was familiar with readers groups where everybody reads the same book and then they discuss it. And I was also familiar with writers groups where everybody just talks about writing and brainstorming and stuff like that. But I didn't see anything that kind of meshed the two together, where readers could feel like they were part of an author's creative process and writers could feel like they were getting that immediate feedback from readers and that creativity that sometimes readers have that writers don't have.
I see. Now, if somebody wanted to join your group, how do they find it?
It's on Facebook. It's Caffeinated Bibliophiles. It's a closed group just in case, people are worried about privacy and whatever. But you can always request to join. And we meet every second and fourth Saturday of the month, 9 a.m. at the Catalyst Coffee Bar.
Oh.
And just talk books like crazy. We've been going through the 10 books that have been most influential for you. So books that you like, or maybe books you didn't like but that were very influential. So it's amazing hearing the life stories that come out of people's experience with books. Very fascinating. We have a blast.
Wow, sounds like fun. I know a couple or three of the people who've been on this show have written, said you ought to join. The only thing is I work Saturdays and wish I could be there, but my heart's there all the time.
Well, and you have your own things going on for writing and things, so.
Oh yeah, there's the Thursday one at the library.
Right, which I wish I could join, but I work Thursdays, so we're in the same trouble.
we only see each other at meetings and occasionally on the street.
Yep.
Now, they seem to be a science fiction genre that you write.
Yeah, mostly I write speculative fiction, which is science fiction, fantasy, and all the subgenres in between. So
Oh.
everything from Star Wars to Lord of the Rings kind of stuff. So I've been mostly growing up, it was mostly fantasy, but I've kind of been doing some more forays into science fiction, which you kind of have to do a lot of research for so that you don't look really stupid on paper.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
people will check that stuff out.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, that science doesn't work, you know. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But actually, I do the same thing for fantasy. One of the things that I really, really focus on for fantasy is doing historical research.
Oh.
A lot of the time, people put their fantasy stories in a medieval setting. But then the way that they treat swords and horses and bows and arrows and things like that is a very unhistorical way. That what you see in Hollywood is not what actually happened.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things I try to do is, whether it's science fiction or fantasy, I really try to do my research so that it's true to what life would be like if we were living in those times or in that world, something like that. So I research, I YouTube and Google and stuff. I research how people actually used swords. Even weird things like where they went to the bathroom and stuff,
Oh.
just because it's all important to know how people lived.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
it was an entirely different world in the Dark Ages, and even before that. The influence of the Roman Empire on things and how
Yep.
all that worked was great science fiction. All you have to do is change some things.
Right.
Now, would you say to a writer then, if they're a little nervous about writing, finding the facts and working around them should calm you down because you have something to base it on? It's
Yeah.
like if you're limping along, having a crutch or something is helpful, and that would be the same thing from the way you sound.
Right. Yeah, just do some research and you start feeling more comfortable as you learn more. But also community is good. There are writers out there who know all sorts of things about like anything you can think of, and they can direct you to resources, or they might have read like a pile of books on the subject and might be knowledgeable and stuff. So not being afraid to talk with people and kind of squeeze out of them what they know, you know?
Now, you find people, other writers are great at helping you along if you're a new writer then.
Oh yeah, well, even if you're an established writer, which I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, other writers, until National Novel Writing Month last year actually, I had never had much contact with other writers. I had been kind of isolated and kind of scared actually to say that I was a writer, because it's kind of like, if you tell somebody I'm a writer, it almost sounds like I'm a wannabe token who is sitting in my parents' basement writing down, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody who's not, doesn't have a realistic view of life. At least that was how I thought it came off sounding like. But when I participated in National Novel Writing Month, I found this community of other writers, basically. And having them around and realizing that they have the same quirks as I do and the same fears and the same dreams and different perspectives as well that could inform mine, that helped so much to make me realize I can say that I am a writer and not be afraid of how people will react. You know?
There's published writers and there's unpublished. You're published.
I'm published.
So
yes.
you're a published writer, so you got nothing you don't have to back up for anybody.
Well, the funny thing is people tend to put levels of writers, you know, like, are you unpublished? Are you indie published? Are you traditional published? Are you, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Have you made the New York Times best-selling list? You know,
Oh, yeah.
And I think writers actually put themselves in those categories and don't realize that if you write, you are a writer. And you shouldn't be ashamed of where you are in the process. It's a process. There's no arriving. There's just learning and doing more and stuff. So I guess one of the things I would say to other writers is, don't be afraid of where you are in the process. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
The great basketball players don't come from kindergarten to the national basketball, right? Just one step.
Right. They had to grow.
Everything you do, you have to learn.
Right.
And if you're afraid to learn, then you're in a bad spot in the first place.
You've kind of quit before you've started.
Before you
Yeah.
started. I've had some of the authors say that once they get on Amazon, that they get feedback from their people who have purchased from them.
Yep, and I've gotten some feedback. I've also sent it out to people who I know would be good judges of books and wouldn't just tell me what I wanted to hear, you know? Be like, hey, can you give me some feedback and let me know what this needs or how I can do better on the next edition or whatever. And it has been really good because, you know, you see something 20,000 times and you don't see things anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But they give you feedback and like, oh, okay, I can work with that, you know?
No, I got, the thing I'm writing has some sensitivities towards redheads. And I have my own redhead, but she isn't going to tell me anything bad. She's the sweetest girl on earth. And it would be good to get feedback from somebody that has lived that all their life. And,
Right.
I don't know if any of your characters are characters that you need help with, but it sounds like there are people out there to help you.
There are. Actually, in Immersion, I have a character with cerebral palsy, and that's something that I have some familiarity with, not myself, but some people that my uncle has cerebral palsy, a couple of my friends do as well. So I was able to take what I have observed from them and how they live their daily lives and how they're treated by other people and stuff, and kind of put that into the story. So yeah, it is good having those people that you can talk to or observe firsthand to get a sense of what you want to put into the story.
Yeah, there was a whole book on somebody with that had a developmentally disabled.
Yep.
And it was major, major book. So without mentioning the name of it, it's good. So what else did you find was helpful when you first started? Well, other than I would say you've been a writer forever. But what else have you found helpful while you're writing, especially for somebody that's writing, is just starting to write or thinking about it?
Getting your stuff out there so you can get the feedback. And that doesn't necessarily mean publishing. When I was younger, there was a local library that sponsored writing contests yearly, and I entered every year for 4 years. And I placed every year for 4 years, but it was also useful not just to place, I mean, obviously that made me really happy, but to see what the competition looked like and why they may have gotten the places that they did, and getting the feedback from the judges about what worked in my submissions. So just getting out there, being involved in a newsletter of some kind or a contest, or submitting your work to one of the other things I did was I submitted a couple chapters of my first novel to a writer friend of mine. And said, hey, critique this. Well, the thing came back with red ink all over it. And I was initially a little deflated, like, whoa, I did not expect this much. But on the other hand, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because his feedback, even though I wasn't at a place maybe then to understand all the points that he was making, I eventually did understand all of them. When I look back at it now, it was like he was really fair with everything that he said. One of the things that he had said several times was that all my guy characters acted like teenage girls. I was like, okay, clearly something is not working here, and it probably did not help having 5 girls in my family and only a boy at the tail end. So I started really, I don't want to say stalking, but I started really observing men and trying to understand the male psyche and how it works and how they would react to things differently than girls would.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're completely different creatures, obviously.
Oh, yeah. And different experiences as they're growing up and everything.
Different ways of reacting to things, different ways of expressing yourselves and stuff. So I think I'm at a place now where my dad, at least, last time I read something to him with a male character, he was like, oh, you got that really right. I'm like, oh, good, sweet. So, yeah, asking for feedback and getting your work out there is a big deal.
That's good. Yeah, I know I go, like I say, I go to writers group because I can't get into yours because of working, but it's been immensely helpful to me. And they don't complain or anything. If you make a mistake, you have to ask if you want feedback. They let you read, and I've gone back on some of the stuff I wrote for it. Each month they give you a prompt and you write to it, and I've gone back and said, what did I do that for? But now
It's learning.
Yeah, learning. You everything you do, you've learned somewhere, somehow. And the people out in the audience, I think, I'm talking to a barber who should be writing a book on barber stories that he hears while he's cutting hair.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
And trying to get a barber somewhere to do it, even if a retired one. They have stories and jokes and very interesting ones. A lot of them you can't put on paper, but the ones you can would make a fantastic book. Just getting them out of the little nervous stage.
Right.
And if you know barbers, they're busy as the dickens, and then all of a sudden they're not.
Yep, it comes and goes in seasons.
Yeah, well, days times days. You know. And I imagine hairdressers are the same way, and I would imagine the same goes from them. If you're a hairdresser, you've heard some things that, gee, you know, this was really funny, and you can do a series of little short blurbs and make a really good book.
Yeah.
And it would be so interesting to people. Then you got the Reader's Digest and some of those places where you can put stories in.
Yeah, magazines and yes, and periodicals. Yes.
Yeah, there's one newspaper up north a little farther that they always have stories from people. Some of the writers groups that say, I'm not going to mention the name of the newspaper, but that's their forte is stories from the people, little 100 words or so, one way or the other. And
that just kind of highlights that everybody has a story to tell. Because I think some people put themselves in the category of, oh, I'm not a writer. It's like, well, no, you are a writer if you have a story to tell, you know?
If you signed a birthday card and put a little jot on, you're a writer because you wrote something.
Sure.
And you thought of it and you wrote it.
Sure.
So
Maybe you're not getting paid for it, but you still wrote it.
Still wrote it. Yeah, I've heard somebody say that if you want to really pull a trick on grandchildren, get a blank card and handwrite, because they don't teach that in school anymore. It's a shame.
Oh, the cursive.
Yeah, in cursive.
Yep.
And then let them have to ask somebody what you said is sort of course.
It's almost a code at this point, right?
Yeah, it's almost a code, and but that is writing. You know, hi. You know, we went snowmobiling last week, and I don't know how you would do this thumb thing, but that's
I haven't figured it out yet either.
Sort of writing, but why be afraid to do better than that?
Well, and there's some interesting studies actually that I've come across that say that if you handwrite as opposed to typing on a keyboard, it unlocks this different part of your brain and creativity, and you actually, I guess the writing flow kind of goes better. So what some writers do, I mean, for me, typing, I'm so much faster at it than I am handwriting. But what I do sometimes is I'll handwrite a few things before I do my regular writing session on the computer. So I'll just write a couple pages by hand, and then I'll swap to the computer and start working on my project. That way I'll get the creativity flowing, you know.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Worked out pretty well.
And then there's this 3 o'clock in the morning writing. I don't know if you ever do it or not.
Sometimes.
You put a 5x7 card next to the bed. You put a package of them and a pen, and then you wake up. You can't sleep.
Oh yes, yes. I have a whole notebook actually.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then if you get up, go down and eat breakfast or have a cup of coffee, it's gone.
Yeah.
It just evaporates. It
Yes.
must be that same part of the brain you use when you.
I know you always think, I'm not going to forget this, I'm not going to forget this, but if you don't write it down, it will totally fizzle away.
And yes, it's some of your best work too, usually. You know?
Yep.
I think that's the same. When I was taking English Comp 2, she'd start almost everything was, okay, first 5 minutes, grab a pen and just write something. So what am I supposed to write? Anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what. And then some of that stuff you can develop into a decent story.
Absolutely.
And
I think The Hobbit started with Tolkien just having this random blip one day and writing out, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit.
Oh.
And that was just, he didn't have a story idea, he just had that one sentence. It was just, and then later on he went on to develop something out of it.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, that's how they start, is just splat an idea on the page.
I've promoted the idea of if you've been in a stress situation where you're PSD, is it called?
PTSD.
Yeah. That just write something about it and shove it under the mattress so nobody will see it if you don't want anybody to know about it. That takes it out of your mind and puts it on paper. How do you think about that?
I like that idea because, again, some studies have shown that journaling is also very good for writing. And it's good for writing because nobody's ever going to see it. And you know that nobody's ever going to see it. Or at least you hope they don't.
Yeah.
You know? But that takes the self-consciousness out of writing. And it takes the, you know, what would people think about me if they saw what I'm actually writing here? Especially with PTSD, but with any other, you know, concern or whatever. Just knowing that that's your private place where you can write however you want. You don't even have to have good punctuation or spelling. Just put the ideas down.
Not good spelling. That's my forte. I don't have. Yeah, I read it back and say, what was it? What was I trying to?
Like, really, where was I going with that?
Yeah. What's that word? It begins with an O.
Yep.
From there on, it's downhill fast.
Have some of those. You're trying to reinterpret what you did.
And then your spell check, right?
Yep.
You put down a name and it tries to turn it into a noun or something or pronoun.
Especially my name. They always want it to be Yamaha. It's like, no, it's Yaasha. Actually,
the first part of your first name in Polish is a greeting in the morning.
Really?
Yeah, Yaasha.
Yaasha is good morning?
I think that's good. I think it's morning, but anyway, if you know somebody that's Polish.
Oh, cool.
The one next to, well, I can't give the name of it. There's a restaurant headed out Route 7. Mm-hmm. And right next to it is a motel, and they're Polish. I walked in there one day at our wedding. We put everybody out, and I understood there was a Polish accent, so I says Yaasha, and smiles all over the place. You know, what? You know Polish? I know one word.
Just that one.
Just that one. That was enough.
This is a happy word.
Yeah. So we have a happy first name.
Yes. Well, I'm a happy person, so
you are.
It works out well.
Definitely, and a good writer too.
Well, thank you. I flatter myself I might be, but I'm not very unbiased.
Well, yeah. There's two kinds. One kind is, I think I can't do it. I'm not doing it right. Yeah. And then there's the other kind that, okay, that's me. If you don't like me, then so what?
Right. Or then there's the writers like me who kind of vacillate between the two, where you're like, oh, I'm the most awesome writer. That's brilliant. And then the next day you're like, I'm such a failure. Why did I even try this? But at least you go back and forth and you don't stay in the dumps.
Yep. Failure is just an excuse for trying it again and again until you get it right.
Yeah. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah, but I guess we got 4 minutes left. We got talking and forget the time.
It's always fun.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't brought up yet?
Oh, goodness. Probably.
The snowy roads this morning.
Oh, goodness, yes. Those were fun, though. I guess maybe just going to the snowy roads, anything that you experience in life can become a story. There are some combinations of stories that I would have never thought of if I hadn't been willing to kind of be a little more open about certain parts of my life or experiences that I've had. Just noticing people, you can pull anything into a story. Heck, I look at what people have in their shopping carts and get stories out of that.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
like, what kind of person would buy that stuff? Probably this kind of person. Maybe this is what her personal life is like, and I have no idea, but I'm making up stories.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And then, like you say, it doesn't have to go anywhere. You just
No.
go back and enjoy it. And then the next time you see the same person, you've written something about them, and they're an
Yep.
interesting person.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can throw it in a drawer if you want to, or maybe someday something big will come out of it. You never know.
You never know.
But there's a story to everything, and people shouldn't be shy about thinking that, you know, oh, I don't have a story in me. Yeah, you probably do. You just have to be willing to share it.
I saw a squirrel with a whole mouthful of little branches for a nest going across the
Oh, cute.
thing. I never wrote about it, but yeah, you could write a pretty decent story about that. You know, maybe not a real novel, but then again,
Yeah, it's a short
after
story.
that, I get watching all the neighborhood squirrels, and they have their own little world, and they're very interesting.
Yeah,
Some people are squirrels, but no,
I
they
think they're kind of cute. Plus, you get stories out of them, right?
get stories out of them, and they're very industrious. So, yeah, we're going to have to wrap up in a minute. We got just 2 minutes left to go.
Sounds
So,
good.
what would you say to the people out there about starting to write? Has you got any?
I would say let go of your fear. Let go of your fear and believe that you do have a story and believe that you are a writer. If you write, you are a writer. There's no criteria for what a writer is. There's just doing it.
Well, thanks an awful lot for coming in this snowy winter weather that people down south think is a blizzard, and we think it's just heavy frost.
There we
you
go.
know. Coming in and sharing your story with us, your story about stories, right?
Thank you. Thank you for
And,
inviting me.
I've delved into your books a little bit. I know I'm going to go in deeper sooner or later. I won't be able to resist them. But you have been a very interesting person to talk to.
You have too.
Thank you. And so until the next time out there, I expect that this influenced you into starting to write a story of your own. Even if you don't publish it or do anything with it, just start to write. And maybe this Christmas we can send out Christmas cards that are handwritten instead of some of these that somebody else thought of. That's writing too, and it's an important time of year. Maybe teach the young ones that, hey, write. There is something about writing. You don't have to type everything out. You can write too. So thank you very much, and until next time, this is Jerry Vaisey and Yaasha Moriah, and wishing you a Merry Christmas, and you take care, and expect to have one of you guys in here someday with your own story, your own book that you published, and we'll talk about it. Thank you very much, and good night.